A big push for pedal power in San Diego. The new way to get through Mission Valley by bike.
We're not catering to stoner tourists.
We've been open 2 months and the sky hasn't fallen in Talkeetna.
A town divided over pot, all the hot air over a store with a speakeasy vibe in Alaska.
This is what a small village would look like. You can hear Marines and sailors with live fire in the background. I'm going to give histories, backgrounds. You guys can sketch, paint, draw, take pictures. At this point, does anybody have any questions?
When art and real life intersect, the project that connects creative minds to conflict on the other side of the world. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. After backlash, today the city of San Diego announced its revised plan for its national search to replace the retiring police chief. The city has added public forums in City Heights and San Ysidro after a coalition of groups raised concerns. The organizations called for more public input. They also opposed plans to not identify those conducting the candidate interviews until a chief was selected. City Heights-based Mid-City Community Advocacy Network is a coalition member. The nonprofit's Sean Ello says adding forums is a step in the right direction, but a confidential interview panel is not.
We actually need to do everything that we can to build community police trust and relationships, and a secret panel is not the way to do that.
A city spokeswoman says the confidential selection panel is meant in part to ensure the candidates don't lobby the members. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis is assembling a panel of experts to explore the issue of transgender people serving openly in the U.S. military. This comes after President Trump on Friday directed the Pentagon to extend a ban on transgender people joining the military, but gave Mattis the power to decide about those already serving. On Tuesday, 140 House Democrats sent a letter to the president asking him to reconsider his ban. A San Diego River rescue team is packed but still hasn't got official orders to head to Houston to help Hurricane Harvey victims. Lifeguard Sergeant Ed Harris says he's frustrated by the bureaucratic red tape and says the longer wait times mean fewer people in need will receive assistance. But a spokeswoman for San Diego Fire Chief Brian Fennessy says it's not as simple as that. She says the city is part of a professional response system, so we cannot just self-deploy, we respond to orders. A search and rescue team from San Diego left a few days ago to assist stranded people in Houston. San Diego Unified will not acquire surplus military equipment. That's the word from the school police chief, Michael Marquez. In response to this week, a Trump administration announcement, it's reinstating a program that funnels combat gear to local law enforcement agencies. The district, which has its own police department, came under fire in 2014 when it procured an armored vehicle through the program. The vehicle was intended to help with rescues in crisis situations, but it came amid public scrutiny of militarized police and was returned. San Diego transportation officials today opened up a new protected bike lane along State Route 15. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen has more.
Dozens of bicyclists showed up at the ribbon-cutting ceremony. Eager to take a ride on the new bike path. City Councilman Chris Ward says this kind of bikeway protected from cars is what San Diego needs more of.
Having safe connections to walk, bike, or transit will help eliminate some of the trips that we're otherwise taking by car, which in turn helps us meet our city's goal for the Climate Action Plan.
Mission Valley is notoriously difficult for bicyclists to get through. There aren't many bike routes connecting the valley with the mid-city area. Those that do exist are a steep uphill climb with little protection from fast-driving cars. The new bike path offers a safer, more comfortable route, says Andy Hanshaw, executive director of the San Diego County Bike Coalition.
Let's continue planning and building out networks. That's what it's about. I think the days of just putting paint on the street are behind us.
San Diego has a ways to go before it has that fully connected bike network. The new bike path begins and ends on streets with no bike lanes at all. Still, more than 7 years after plans for the bikeway were first made, cyclists are thrilled to have another safe route to ride on. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
San Diego's index of leading economic indicators jumped 0.5% in July, the second straight sharp increase. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson has more.
It has been 9 months since the index retreated, and that bodes well for the region's economy. Housing starts jumped by nearly 3% during the index's gain. University of San Diego professor Alan Jin compiles the numbers. He says there was also positive movement in stock prices, consumer confidence, and view of the national economy. Jin says the weakness was in the job market.
Initial claims for unemployment insurance were up, which is a negative for the index. And also help wanted advertising was down for the 5th month in a row. So a little bit of softness in the labor market.
Jin says the seasonally adjusted unemployment rate has climbed to 4.4%. He expects solid economic growth through the middle of next year. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Refugee service providers and advocates across California are meeting in San Diego today for the sold-out 2017 Refugee Summit. KPBS City Heights reporter Taryn Minto tells us some local groups will be missing out because ticket sales to the state-sponsored event were expensive.
The Refugee Summit is being held here at this downtown hotel. Ticket prices started at $190. Now, we talked to Orrin Robinson. He's the treasurer for the San Diego Refugee Forum. It's a coalition of community members and local organizations. He says that the ticket price was too high for many of its 52 members and even further out of reach for other community groups who can't even afford the forum's fee.
There's great groups like the Haitian Bridge Alliance who are doing incredible work here in San Diego, but aren't able to pay our $60 membership fee at the Refugee Forum itself.
A spokesman for the California Department of Social Services, which is sponsoring the summit, says that the ticket prices are based in part on the location of the summit. He also said that 2 previous conferences were more expensive. Reporting in downtown San Diego, I'm Taryn Minto for KPBS News.
Older Americans hobbled by leg pain will have a new option with Medicare starting in January. AP reporter Carla Johnson says the plan will expand to include treadmill therapy.
Step by step, mile by mile, these seniors are helping scientists prove a simple concept. Treadmills can be good medicine.
It hurt from my calf to my hip.
The pain was just excruciating.
So many things I can't do.
The condition is called peripheral artery disease. 8 million Americans have it. Risk increases as you age.
Peripheral artery disease is a blockage of the arteries that supply the legs. And patients who have peripheral artery disease tend to have difficulty walking. They often get pain in their calf muscles, or they can feel tightness or a burning, or even weakness.
So I do 8 minutes, and then I rest a couple.
Each year, Medicare spends nearly $4 billion on surgeries and interventions to treat PAD. Now, Medicare has decided to cover supervised exercise therapy.
Supervised treadmill exercise is exercise on a treadmill that takes place in a hospital-based setting or in just a supervised setting where an exercise physiologist or another trained professional is with the patient while they are doing their treadmill exercise. It's one of the very few therapies that is effective, and suddenly it will increase access of patients to this effective therapy.
You know, there is life at the end of this. You know, I can get back to the things that I used to do, and I know it's going to be better. But you have to push yourself. You have to want to get better in order to do better.
Medicare, now helping PAD patients as they stride toward better health. Carla Johnson, Associated Press.
I'm Miles O'Brien on the next News Hour. What we know about the links between Harvey and climate change. That's Wednesday on the PBS News Hour.
The heat advisory for the county continues, but San Diego got a little cool down this morning as fog dominated the sky in National City. Erin Calandra has more in tonight's forecast.
It is still very hot out here, and we are still in places under a heat warning. Places like Chula Vista, San Diego, all the way up to Oceanside, and then inland, Mount Laguna, we're all in an advisory here. The surrounding areas, just a heat watch. So very hot conditions here. Some areas a bit warmer than others, and we are seeing some pop-up showers and thunderstorms in the deserts, also in the mountains, and some of the surrounding areas. That's how it looks really here for the Southwest. Pop-up showers in the mountains, very common. We are seeing some heavy, thick fog in the morning. We even have some advisories out for the marine forecast for those morning hours because of the fog. It's going to continue for a couple of days, burning out though for plenty of sunshine. So for tonight, 72 degrees, mainly clear, and again, a foggy morning should be expected. Our temperatures, Oceanside a low of 70, San Diego 72, Ramona 66, and Mount Laguna 65 degrees. Borrego Springs, our lows are in the 80s. Here we are for our big picture for Thursday. It's still going to be very hot here along the West Coast. We have a high pressure system in place here. That's pulling up all this hot air from Mexico, shooting it all the way up to the Pacific Northwest. And of course, those spotty thunderstorms, they're going to continue here as well. Taking a look at tomorrow, temperatures, Oceanside 88, San Diego 86. We should be at 77 for this time of year. So that is about 10 degrees above average. Could see those pop-up showers and thunderstorms in places like Borrego Springs and Ramona, 103 degrees there. As I said, a heat advisory in place right along the coast, also a couple places inland. Everyone else an excessive heat warning. So make sure you're checking on your elderly neighbors. They are certainly susceptible to this type of heat, and also make sure you're staying hydrated, your kiddos and your pets as well. Here we are along the coast all week long, partly sunny skies, foggy in the mornings, temperatures in the 80s, so a very hot week ahead of us. Inland, even hotter. We're talking 100 degrees pretty much every day with plenty of sunshine. Here in the mountains, hot in the 80s, thunderstorms, showers expected, and in the deserts, triple digits. Again, some wet weather could be seen. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra.
A recreational pot shop on Main Street is causing a divide in a tourist town in Alaska. AP reporter Robert Bumstead has more.
In the summer, this quirky small town in Alaska gets inundated with travelers from cruise ships. Visitors strolling down the quaint Main Street can find restaurants, art galleries, and gift shops, all nestled in historic cabins. Tucked in one of those cabins is a new business that's dividing this tourist town.
We're not catering to stoner tourists.
We've been open 2 months, and the sky hasn't fallen in Talkeetna.
Joe McEnany is the co-owner of the town's first recreational marijuana store. It took him more than 2 years to open, since Alaska's residents voted to legalize recreational pot in 2014. McEnany says the store follows the town's aesthetics, blending in with other wood cabins. He named the store High Expedition Company, a reference to the town's history as a staging area for climbing Denali.
As you walk by, you might have noticed there's no pot leaves, there's no big flashing green crosses or anything. It's real subtle, and we have sort of a speakeasy vibe going on here, which tends to fit the town.
But those efforts aren't enough for other tourism operators, including Mike Stoltz, who owns a bed and breakfast.
My thing is with the kids, you're trying to protect the kids growing up here. That was my number 1 point. Number 2 point is we have no law. So if somebody gets out of line, you know, like I mentioned earlier, the trooper's an hour away. What are we supposed to do?
Stoltz says the pot store should have opened outside the town's historic main strip. He also says that smoking marijuana in public is illegal and tourists aren't familiar with the state law. Alaska state troopers say they've issued no citations for public consumption of marijuana in the first few months the store has been open, but the rift isn't just among business owners. Christy Stoltz stands on the opposite side of her father and supports the marijuana store.
I would be really surprised if people all of a sudden would judge the whole town because there's a marijuana shop. I think that, yeah, change, nobody likes change, so I think that's a big thing.
One store causing a big ripple as the expansion of a legal marijuana industry spreads to the country's northernmost state. Robert Bumstead, Associated Press.
This is a great place. You all just buy up there in the sky.
It's a bug's life creeping around in kitchen sewers and basements. Researchers estimate there are as many as 20,000 roach species on the planet, and less than 5,000 have been cataloged. In tonight's SciTech report, we go into the lab with roach researchers at Rutgers University.
It started like just another spring day on the job for a New York City exterminator.
And he noticed that there were large cockroaches inside the bait station. And when he showed them to me, I knew that there were characteristics there that were something that I had not seen in this part of the country in the 30-some-odd years that I've been working in the pest control industry.
The puzzling cockroach was examined by experts from Florida to Washington, D.C., before ending up at the Ware Lab at Rutgers University, where researchers capture cockroaches for a different reason.
In my studies in South America, where I collect specimens and I'm trying to figure out how we characterize biodiversity by defining species. I had the job of trying to identify the species. I do work with cockroaches on an everyday basis, but even for me, identifying cockroaches is very difficult. So that's why we had to employ the tool of using genetic identification.
Through a process called DNA barcoding, Evangelista identified the genetic information of the mysterious roach's mitochondria and produced a DNA sequence that could be compared with other known cockroach species.
We did that. We saw that the two unknown specimens fell on the same branch of the tree as the Japanese cockroach. We saw that the sequences were identical. This is a species that's not known to be invasive in the U.S. It has an interesting characteristic that it is cold tolerant, which is unique among pest cockroaches we see in New York City.
Many of these invasive species become successful because they know something or they can do something which other species cannot do. They have traits which are novel to the system, and therefore they become successful and invasive.
But the arrival of a new cold-tolerant cockroach isn't novel. The invasion has been going on for centuries. New York City's famous roaches originated elsewhere. There's the oriental cockroach, actually thought to be from Africa, which likes wet and damp areas. The American cockroach, also of African descent, which is partial to sewer lines and floor drains. The German cockroach, a Southeast Asian export, which you may find in your kitchen. The brown-banded cockroach, native to Africa, which likes drier parts of your home, like your bedroom. And the Suriname cockroach of Southeast Asian origin, which burrows in ornamental plants.
When humans came to new areas, they brought these species with them. But since they always travel with humans, there might be one of the first species we have brought into North America. I'm quite sure that Jamestown, for instance, had cockroaches. We stepped from a ship, something else came as well.
In fact, John Smith, one of the founders of Jamestown, wrote in 1624 that a certain India bug, called by the Spaniards a cockroach, the which creeping into chests they eat and defile with their ill-scented dung. But the pest cockroaches we've grown all too familiar with make up just a small percentage of cockroach species.
About less than 1% of the cockroaches that exist on the planet are pest species. We know about 4,500 species, but there's probably a lot more than that. The only formal estimate that I've seen is about 20,000. There are cockroaches with some amazing qualities. There are other cockroaches that glow in the dark. There are other cockroaches that have bright metallic coloration. There's a huge variety of awesome behaviors that they display.
Cold tolerance is just another trick in their time-tested arsenal.
Well, they've always said that cockroaches will be the last living thing found here. You know, if you look back in the historical record, cockroaches have not changed that much in 350 million years. So it's pretty much a perfect living thing. They'll be here long after we're gone.
You can find more stories like that one on SciTech Now, Sunday nights at 5:30 here on KPBS. The life of an artist and that of a deployed soldier may be worlds apart, but there's an art project bridging that gap and bringing creators closer to seemingly remote international conflicts.
This was the Marine Corps' first attempt at building an urban warfare training center here in 29 Palms. This is what a small village would look like. You can hear Marines and sailors with live fire in the background. I'm going to give histories, backgrounds. You guys can sketch, paint, draw, take pictures. At this point, does anybody have any questions?
What does drawing have to do with understanding this place? Why here? What's to draw here? This is not a scenic overlook or something like that.
There are pyrotechnics and tripwires set up in the entire village.
What's tripwire?
If you hit the wire, it goes boom.
If that's the case, why would you ever let us be near it?
The people that join me at these draw-ins want to sit with us and think and draw and contemplate and otherwise metaphorically trace those places. How can we understand Southern California landscape as a way of relating to what it feels like to be in a war zone somewhere else? And 29 Palms Marine Base is a great place to do that because all of the Marines that were going to Iraq were trained in these mock villages there, and now they're training Marines to go to Afghanistan using the same simulated environments.
I'm a landscape architect, so the way in which we relate to the land is something I'm just fundamentally interested in. And to be here and to see it at this scale and sort of in these ways, and the role that it plays as a training ground, yet has all the sublime qualities of the landscape that we sort of value so much. That's the thing that makes this the perfect place to train for the 21st century battlefield.
The simulation center, I didn't know anything about what that was going to be like at. And that was so dramatic. I think the thing that is disturbing is that it's easy to be in these places and to get into all of the training and to imagine what it might be like to have to train yourself. And you take all this stuff very seriously, but there's also this sense that it's a game. You are not actually under the real pressures of being in a war zone. You learn things about a place differently through drawing than by listening to somebody talk or by reading. The longer we stay in a place, I think the more we can connect to it. And that's part of what drawing allows us to do. It's just to stay in that place and connect. And by sitting and drawing, there is, just by doing that, a point of being able to connect, and it gives us a chance to think about how much can I really understand about the places that this is supposed to represent through this process.
That story was from Artbound, a production of KCET in Los Angeles. A billionaire with a passion for lacrosse is bringing the sport professionally to San Diego. The National Lacrosse League has announced their 10th franchise will play at the Valley View Casino Center starting next year. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman has more.
I want to welcome the National Lacrosse League team to San Diego.
Pro lacrosse is coming to San Diego starting next year. The team will play in the National Lacrosse League, which currently has no teams on the West Coast.
For us, we've traditionally been an East Coast team, Canadian teams, Northeast, and San Diego is a key geographic market for us. In addition to a world-class owner, a great arena, and a market that is really a major league sports market.
The franchise's owner, Joe Tsai, has deep pockets. According to Forbes Online, he's worth nearly $9 billion. Tsai is vice chairman and co-founder at Alibaba, one of the largest companies in the world. But outside of business, he has a passion for lacrosse, even playing in college.
He thought San Diego would be a great place to be. We did a lot of market research with regards to the sport and the building and dates in the building.
The NLL season typically runs December through June, with current teams averaging more than 9,000 fans per game.
It's 5-on-5 with goalies, so 6-on-6 on turf in a hockey set with turf over the ice. It's an explosively fast game with a number of, hits and great shots and passing. The offense and defense look a lot like basketball. If you watch basketball from pick and rolls and the defense that you play, ultimately the game with the best players in the world is, second to none as far as entertainment.
The new San Diego team plans on unveiling a name, logo, and colors sometime in late fall. Until then, the team is already taking deposits for season tickets. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, 2 trailblazing women filmmakers. A look at how you can catch a screening of their films in San Diego. And on Midday Edition, pressing the reset button. A look at how 2 local universities are trying to help more students graduate. That's tomorrow at noon on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great evening.